What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me?
Yep. I'm already recording. Yeah, man. It really makes a difference. It really makes a difference. Wait, I'm not going to use this stuff, but I'll just letting you know so I don't have to press any buttons. But yeah, the mic helps a lot. I want to get one of those mics that has like a boom attached to it. Like it has like a little arm, so it goes down. So it's not connected.
Like one of the studio mics, yeah.
Right. So it's not connected to the floor. This one has a base on it. So I'm gonna get one of those like they use on Big Pockets. I want to figure out a way to get the people that come on my show microphones as well. Like if I could send them out in advance or something, that'd be kind of cool. Really trying to invest in the brand this year, man. So I want to get more.
Man, 3 years, a lot of work. It's like it's been paying off. I'll be saying it.
Right. Yep. You wouldn't happen to have headphones, do you?
No headphones.
Not even the Apple headphones?
Well, I got like some boom headphones, like hold on. Oh, these are charged up.
We be talking stick talk. I think I got some coffee. I need some coffee. Yeah, for some reason. I do these. Say something again.
Can you hear me?
It's actually more of an echo now for some reason.
Yeah, it could be because of these are Boss headphones I usually use when I'm listening to my music.
Oh, take those off then, man. I was trying to cut back the feedback.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's get it in. So, what I want to talk about is, of course, the investment club, but I also want to talk about some social media topics, and so I'm going to talk about those in the beginning.
All right.
So we can kind of have some conversation around that, and then we'll get
into
the club.
To show me in. You know, I've been off the social media for the past 2 days.
Okay.
So you gotta catch me up.
So the only topics that I wanted to discuss, one is the needs-based business rant that Dana Chanel and her husband were on. So they were just talking about people need to start need-based businesses and stop starting like t-shirt lines.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting some feedback on your end. I don't know why. Well, I mean, I know why. It's because I can hear my voice through your speakers.
Okay, hold on. Let's see. Is this better?
That's a little bit better.
Okay. That's
cool. Yeah. It's cool. It might mess up the audio, but it was also kind of distracting as well. Nevertheless, let's get it in, man. This is the Todd Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode number 98. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire, founder and director of the Todd Capital Investment Club. We have over 300 members. Also the founder of Todd Acquisitions, which is our real estate investment club, which has around 8 properties. And really, we have the capacity to just do so much more and just scale fast and just build so many different things. We're finishing up one rehab and walking right into another. They should be gutting that thing today. And so the first rehab took a little bit longer. Of course, we're doing this all from long distance, all from out of state, which is definitely doable with technology these days. Videos can be sent, pictures can be sent. You can call the person 24/7. You can text the person 24/7, email. We have access to people in ways we never had access to people before, which opens up the way we can do business like never before. And so we finished this property. It took them a lot longer than it should have. Some of that's weather related just because it gets so cold in Michigan. It gets so cold in the D. And so, but I told him it's springtime. It's time to work. So, hey, I need this property done 30 days, rented in 45. So we'll see what he can do. Hopefully he can live up to that. I mean, he did really good work. If you guys saw the property that we posted on Instagram on @ToddInvestments, that thing was beat down. People would walk into the house and they would say, "Why'd you buy this house?" And now you look at it and it's like, I would live in that house. It looks really nice. He hooked it up. New floors, new bathroom, new kitchen, new everything. And we did it for a very affordable price. Don't get hustled out there. You can get rehab done for a lot less expensive than you think. Nevertheless, thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors so that people can hear success stories, become motivated, see the things that they don't see in the media, because in the media, all you see is drug dealers and whatever they put in the media. It's not positive. It's not uplifting. And if it is uplifting, it's typically portrayed in the light of a first person to do something that a white person's already done. That's not news. That's not success, in my opinion. Success is being the first ever to do something that nobody's ever done. Facebook is the first ever to do something that nobody's ever done. Google is the first ever. Microsoft is the first ever. Apple is the first ever. You don't get to wealth by being the first person to do something that's already been done. You get to wealth by being the first person that's ever done something that's ever been done at scale. Today we have a guest. His name is Jamaal Vetose. He is the president of the Todd Capital Investment Club, which is awesome. He, he's been doing some blog writing. If you guys haven't gotten a chance to check it out, he's been posting some really, really good content out there. He posts lots of blogs. At first, he was hesitant to write the blogs, and now he's writing it went from doing one a week or something, 2 a week, and now it's every time I look up, he's posting a blog. He also writes the Monday email, which if you guys are not reading those emails, there's a ton of value in those emails. You are going to learn a lot just by reading those emails. Read it even if you don't understand what he's talking about, because what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing patterns over and over and over again. You're going to start seeing things play out. And so learning is a process. Learning isn't just, I understand how to invest in stocks, period. You learn by reading over and over and over again. I always tell people, when I wanted to really start talking or learning finance, I started my finance education. I would just watch CNBC 24/7. And in the beginning, I had no idea what they were talking about at all. I was like, what are these guys talking about? But I still watched because I was like, you know what, if I just keep watching, soon I'll get it. And eventually I got it. And then I kept watching so much that I realized that they're wrong. And they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, they know, but you can't make investment picks based off of what's on CNBC. If it's on the front page of the paper, it's typically too late. Nevertheless, thank you for coming onto the show, man. I didn't have to fight you to get on this show this time, so that was cool.
Thanks, Charles. We've been doing this a while, 3 years now, and you said,
yes.
it's grown. The only I would like to say to your listeners is the only reason I was hesitant about the blog initially was though I am an analyst and an analytical mind, I felt like writing blogs wasn't necessarily my strong suit. I'm kind of short and simple, straight to the point, and blogs need to be sometimes more detailed because, as you said, some people need more information. They need it simplified. They need you to explain. So, but like you said, the more I did it, the more it became natural to me, and the more I knew what I should say, how to cut it down and everything like that. So
right.
I definitely have to give you kudos for pushing me out of my comfort zone to do something that I necessarily I wouldn't say I wouldn't want to do, but I just didn't feel I had the skill set to do.
Right. And that's something that I really believe in. It's funny because that's not the only thing I've pushed you to do. The first thing I pushed you to do was write the emails. Mm-hmm. And I got some pushback from you on that. And then you just started writing them. And then now you're finessing them. It's really, really good stuff. It's so good we do post it to the blog. It's so good that we are able to say, hey, as a part of this brand new concept of an investment club we're launching, you're going to get access to this email. It's valuable content. It's worth money. And you get there by doing. You don't get there by saying, I don't have the skills. You get the skills by doing. That's why if you're an athlete, they have football practice. Nobody's born being a good athlete. They practice and become a good athlete. Nobody's good being a good business person. They practice to become a good business person. Nobody's good doing a podcast. My voice on a podcast is way different than my voice in general conversation because I've listened to it and I've realized okay, I need to figure out how my voice is going to sound better coming across the speakers. And I learned that by doing. My first few podcasts are terrible. However, is a lot of very valuable content in our older episodes. And episode in the 30s and 40s, we have some really, really good stuff. That's where we're talking to Al Williamson, Lisa Phillips. That's when we had Hood Estates on. That's when we had Aisha Selden on. So don't sleep on our older episodes. But my point is that you get better as you do. And the reason why I bring it up on this show is for anybody who's listening, who's like, I want to become a real estate investor. I want to become a truck buyer. I want to become a whatever. What happens is you don't really become good at buying trucks or buying property until after you bought a few properties. And so you buy it, you learn your mistakes. It's like the rehab on this property we're doing is actually like we've done 3 rehabs, right? So the first rehab was just a little basic paint, carpet rehab. And so then the next one was a full gut, terrible job. I mean, the house we bought was in really bad condition and we still made mistakes. I thought I made all the mistakes I was going to make. And so now we're going into deal 3. We have systems in place. We have processes in place. We have procedures in place because I made a bunch of mistakes. And a lot of people don't ever get to the point where they have systems in place and processes in place and resources in place because they don't make the mistakes. Mistakes aren't bad, but we're taught in school the mistakes are bad. And so we go out there and we don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to write blogs because we don't want to write it wrong. And we don't realize like writing the wrong blog is going to help you write the right blog. So I say all that to say that take action.
That's kind of how my investing skills came about. I've told you this, my personal story. When I made my first investment, I bought Sprint for $500 in 2008. I knew nothing. This is before I had my finance degree, before my analytical skills had really come together. And that turned into a $3,500 profit off just, reading a few analysis, really looking into Sprint. I was with their carrier at the time. So I was like, the one thing Buffett always said is buy what you know or buy what you own. So I bought
what you understand.
And it turned into a profit. And that experience, even though I really didn't have any skill set to make that type of profit, that experience made me learn more, made me read more. I prefer Bloomberg to CNBC when I'm doing my analysis, but that made me read more books. That made me pick finance as my specialty when I did go back to college in 2010. It made me really delve into it because I wanted the skill set to build wealth in the community, to build wealth for my family personally, because I grew up poor. So if I could gain skills and learn techniques that would change the generational economic status of my family, I was going to do it.
Right. I think that that's how we all get started to learn investing, because after you read everything, after you read all the books, it's still a guessing game. It's still like, maybe this goes up, maybe it goes down. We never know for sure. Even if you pick a great company, maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down. All we're doing is trying to make the most intelligent and informed guess. Yeah. And so that's how I learned how to invest. I made some money, I lost some money, and you feel your way out. You start to feel like, okay, this is working, this isn't working. And what I started to realize is, and I always tell people my story is like, I bought some companies that were hot. And so I would say, oh man, this company made money, I got to buy it. Oh man, this company lost money, I got to sell it. And so I realized like, that's not how you do it. But I learned that by making money and losing money. And so if you are on the sidelines and you're watching this show and you're like, man, I want to start a business, or man, I want to invest in real estate, you got to get started now and you got to learn, because the real wealth is in the learning and the knowledge. It's like they always say, like, if a rich person loses all his money, he can make it all back. Not because he has the money that it takes to make money, but he has the knowledge that it takes to make money. A lot of people think that it takes money to make money. It really takes knowledge to make money. It takes skills to make money. It takes strategy to make money. It doesn't take money to make money. Yes, money is important, but it doesn't have to be your money. It doesn't have to be, it could be the bank's money. It could be your friends or family's money who might not have that education. There's a lot of people out there who know how to make money, but don't know how to make their money make money. If you become a specialist in learning how to make your money make money, there's a world of opportunity for you. And that's what we're trying to do with Todd Capital. I can't wait till I get some Todd Capital shirts in Detroit colors, man. That's my goal. I want to talk about a few things on social media.
Okay.
And I know we're going to continue to talk about just the doing and taking action, because that's something I really live by, 10X. But there's a few topics that are near and dear to my heart that I'm glad to see have kind of come to the forefront of social media. The buzz was kind of short-lived, but we're going to bring it back. And the first topic was about needs-based businesses. So if anybody had seen that conversation, there was a conversation by Dana Chanel, who was an online entrepreneur, and her husband, who I'm sure is an entrepreneur as well. And they were saying, like, it was this big post about Black people not supporting Black business. And he was saying something along the lines of, like, we got to stop creating businesses that need support and start creating businesses that just are a part of people's daily life. An example is every day you got to get gas, whether you like it or not, whether the price is high or not. So you don't want to start a fashion line. You don't want to start a sneaker line. You don't want to start a glamour business, as I call them. You need to start a business that's just going to come in place of that business that already exists in your community. So you start a gas station. Even if you got to figure out how to do it, even if it's hard, even if you need partners, even if you have to figure out some way to do it, like, we need gas stations. Another thing we need is grocery stores. Another thing we need is
dry cleaners,
utility companies, corner stores. Like, we have to start thinking community and stop thinking rich. What's your take on that?
But those essential businesses, those need-based businesses, will build wealth. Like, it speaks
Absolutely.
It speaks to the circulation of the Black dollar, and this comes into this. The reason, there's always a study, I always bring this up, that the Black dollar leaves the community in 6 hours, where in the Asian community it stays there a month, the Jewish community it stays there 20 days, and the white community stays there 17. Why? Because they have those need-based businesses. Like on payday, you get paid, say you get paid that Friday, and you stop at your corner store to get some candy or something in the morning on your way to work. If that's an Asian or a Jewish person, the money's already left our community. Though they may be, their physical property may be in our community, that money's not going to us. That goes to their community, whether it's overseas or back to their community wherever they're living. Why? Because they have a need-based community business in our community that essentially takes the money outside of our community. It's funny that you use the word glamorized business, because I like to call them trendy. Everything's trendy. The sneaker businesses, the fashion businesses, of course, the tech businesses. Everyone wants to be a Black tech entrepreneur making an app, and that sounds good, and it looks good, and that's where the unicorns will be made. But those are not changing the wealth of the overall community. It's not building the community. It's not putting money in your schools. It's not fixing the potholes in your roads, because that tax base is not in the community, because that's on Wall Street. That's where the venture firms are investing your money. We have to get away from the fact that being wealthy is all about having multi-million-dollar businesses. Sometimes it's about having a 6-figure business that made $200,000 because you're a grocery store. Or the dry cleaners that made $150,000 because you're dry cleaning the young professionals, suits, or sewing up a tear or anything like that. I think, or even, let's go even to like the plumbing companies, the old school companies that our grandparents used to make. Like, those companies have lost their luster because it's not sexy. It's not on TV. It's not, on Wall Street. So people feel as though, oh, I'm not going to get rich. Rich is a relative word. If I'm making 6 figures and I know where I know how my bills are being paid, I'm not struggling, there's food in the house, and we're comfortable, I have money in my savings and 401k, you're wealthy. Your family is wealthy. That if your mom made $30,000 and now you're making $120,000, the entire financial situation of your family has changed in a generation. So what if you're doing a job where people feel like you could be hauling trash? You could have a trash hauling business. So you mean to tell me that because you have a trash hauling business, people don't respect your money the same? So we have to get out of this mindset that all of our businesses have to be these high glamour businesses, when they need to really be, like I like to say, consumer brands. They need to be your Kellogg's, your General Mills, because in a recession, people still got to eat.
Right.
So if you have a grocery store in a Black-based community, you're almost recession-proof, because they still got to come get their milk. They need their bread. They need their eggs, because their family has to eat. So I feel like it's good that we've gotten back to the conversation where we need to get back to need-based businesses, because those are where the paradigm will shift. Because I think we're reaching, not saying we're reaching too high, but it's like we're focusing only on the high-end mark, and we're missing the middle ground where the foundation should be.
Right. I have so much to say about that. It reminds me of, I always post this quote, the Carter G. Woodson quote, where he says that a lot of African Americans who were raised up in this book, this quote is from The Miseducation of the Negro. He talks about how a lot of people were brought up in business administration to kind of honor those white collar Wall Street type jobs and neglect the opportunity to run basic pushing peanuts and selling ice in their own community. And he said that the immigrant who hasn't studied business but has studied the Negro goes into the Negro's community and sets up those businesses. So they're selling the peanuts, and they're selling the ice, and they're selling the Chinese food, and they're selling all that stuff. That's one point that I wanted to make. Other point that I wanted to make is the John Henry thing. You brought up washing or cleaning clothes. He built an entire enterprise on dry cleaning clothes. He just thought about it differently. He turned it into a mobile dry cleaner. And what's interesting about that is it looks cool because it's mobile, but it was mobile because he didn't have the ability to have his own storefront. So he had to strategically find a way to do it. I'm all about finding the strategic way to do things and work around the things that people say are limitations. He makes this quote and he says, a lot of people want to start this crazy idea that the Uber for bacon, the Uber for whatever. He said, start anything, because what happens is you're going to find your way by doing. You're going to find your way by running that company, trying to figure out what the market wants. And once you find what the market wants, then you latch onto it, but you built a lot of brand equity. The reason why I think Todd Capital has been able to be successful is because I was able to build the company the way I wanted to build the company. I've started businesses with friends before, and they've always been money, 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 money. We need money. We need money now. When can I get paid? When can I do that? And so I've been fighting this battle with people for the longest of times, from starting businesses in college where we were building the business. We used to have a mobile car wash business. Speaking of mobile, we used to have a mobile car wash business. And I had partners who were like, when do I get paid? I need to get paid. And so they literally left the company because they wanted the money. I have another friend who we used to throw parties after college. And I knew we had to get brand awareness. We had to get a name. You get a name by just hosting dope-ass parties and getting people to come. You don't get a name by taxing everybody who comes in the door $20. And so maybe you got to throw some parties to take a loss, but you got to get them in there and have them having a good time and have them start talking about your business. I was able to do that with Todd Capital because I did so much for free, and I continue to do so much for free. It gives you this brand. It gives you this impact. It gives you this scale. And so instead of chasing money, you got to chase impact and scale. But the thing is I got started. And then, like Jamaal says, we're 3 years in now, and we're still kind of finding our way. Some things are working. Some things need to be refined. We're running into new problems because there's so many people that want to be involved that we have to pivot and find a way to make it make sense for everybody involved, not just for the members, but for the people that support the members. So I think he made a lot of really good, valuable points. One of those is just being recession proof. Before the recession last time, a lot of people were in real estate. A lot of people were in like businesses that weren't necessarily staples in the community. So a lot of people had real estate brokerages. And so that's kind of a glamour business. People love to sell real estate because it's glamorous. Like, oh, I'm selling this property. Instead of saying, I'm going to sell burgers in the hood. People laugh at that all the time, but selling burgers in the hood is lucrative. They have customers who come there every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. And people will look and say, well, why are you here? Like, you have all these degrees. Why are you here? Like, you don't see the bigger picture. You don't know that we do need people who have advanced degrees in the hood selling basic products that people need every day. So I like what you said also about just.
I want to touch on that point you just made, because I feel like too many of us, and I say, man, you are, college educated, have advanced degrees. So most people always assume that we'll never go back to the hood. The hood is where it is. That's where the economic prosperity, whether it be real estate, whether it be, the grocery stores, whether it be the laundromats, because nobody wants to touch it. And here's the thing about it. If we as a people ourselves won't touch it, how do we expect developers or government investment to touch it? Because we're telling them that we won't even touch it, that we don't believe in our own people, that we won't even put our own businesses in our own streets and feed our own people. So, and it's like a two-pronged sword, because you criticize the government or, developers for not coming to the hood, but you yourself won't invest in the hood.
Right.
You'll get advanced degrees, go buy a house in the county. Get away from, go live in suburban white America. Not saying there's anything wrong with it, but then you criticize other people for not investing in the same neighborhood that you yourself wouldn't raise your children.
Right.
So we have to get away from the internal perception, because there's a lot of self-hate. We have to get away from the internal economic discrimination of our own people. We have to stop saying that we won't put our businesses there because it's going to get robbed. I am a big proponent of you attract what you think. If you think your business will get robbed or won't survive in the hood, it probably won't, because you're attracting that negativity. I live in Baltimore City, can be considered one of the most violent cities in America. And I've never been a victim of being robbed. I've never, felt violence in my personal life, because I don't attract that energy. Yeah, I know it happens. I have empathy for people, but I don't think it'll happen to me. I don't attract that, that energy. So I take the same thought process when it comes to businesses. If I could find a good real estate position in a Black neighborhood where they need a grocery store, I would put it there in a heartbeat. So what if this one is considered one of the worst crime rates in the city? They need something, and they'll come to me because I'm providing it for them.
Right. I find that a lot of it is just showing respect to the people in the community and letting them know that you're really not there to compete with them. You also got to kind of have a low profile. You can't be super flashy. You can't be shining on everybody. I think that can kind of attract negative energy. And so there's like a strategic way of going about having a business in the inner city, and it's possible. And there's a lot of people out there that are doing it already. And so it doesn't make sense for us to not participate. It's like you said, I'm very big on there being value in the hood. We don't invest anywhere that's not the hood. And my goal really is to get into the commercial side of things, because I have this concept that the real estate stabilizes the community, the businesses empower and allow the community to prosper, because the income from a business is unlimited, but the income from real estate is pretty stable and consistent. So if you want a business or a community to grow up, you need businesses in that community. You don't just need a bunch of property owners and landlords. Like, yeah, that's the base. That's great. We need to actually be engaging in commerce in those communities. There was a point that I wanted to make, and I forgot what it was, but let's move on to the next topic. Dang, it was going to be good too.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah, it will. So the next one is, a lot of people have been posting that video about last names, where he goes through all those companies like Rolls-Royce and Harley Davidson and Welch's Grape Juice and Wells Fargo. And he's saying like there's power in your last name. And this is something that Dame Dash said a long, long time ago. He got a lot of pushback from it. I guess people are kind of starting to receive it more. I have some friends that created a company called the Black Wealth Renaissance. And Dame Dash actually posted that video with their link on there. It was super cool. I was like happy to see it. I sent him a DM like, hey man, you guys got shouted out by Dame. Like, that's cool. But what's important is this idea that the last name, I'm looking at this thing, Murray's Hair Grease right now. I guarantee that's somebody's last name. And so what Dame was saying is that a job only serves you, right? So a job gives you a paycheck. A business pays your family. Your property pays your family, because it's so big. Like I said, the income is unlimited. So you have a lot of people that can fall underneath that, who can help work for that. Whereas your job is just specific to you. It's a one-to-one relationship, blah, blah, blah. But he went so deep as to show like all those major brands that you don't even know are last names. But I have a theory that there's a lot more small companies that are last names. You just don't even know them. That corner store on the street is probably a family-owned business. Gary V's wine store was a family-owned business. Grant Cardone Company is a family-owned business. His wife works there. His kids are going to work there. The company that I work for now is a family-owned law firm. The dad has it. The son has a stake in it. His wife participates. His brother participates. I bring this up for the same reason that I bring up marriage, is because these are principles to build wealth. Your family is a principle and a base of which you build wealth, and that carries through the last name. So I'm not sure if you have anything you want to touch on that, but did you want to say anything?
I agree with the principle, because you and I are similar in the way that I'm always thinking about longevity. So as I built my businesses, and I do consulting, I do other things. Eventually, it will be under the umbrella of what I like to call a last name business called Vetose Industries. Something I can give to my daughter, she can pass on to her kids, because I tell people all the time, I don't want to be rich. I want to be powerful. There's power in your last name when you invest in it, when you work to build that last name to be something more than just a name on a paycheck. You want it to be royalties. You want it to be income streams. You want it to be philanthropy. And the last names work because think about I always think about the Waltons. I don't shop at Walmart, but I think about the Waltons. Sam Walton built Walmart in Arkansas, and one of the first, I think the first storefront was like a one story. It wasn't even that big.
Mm-hmm.
But as he started branching out, he brought his children into it, gave them stakes, gave them investments. So, most people don't even know that the name Walmart stands for Walton. They don't know that's shorthand for that. Same thing with what's one of the CBS? It's run by the Redstones. Names are built off families building and merging businesses. So I feel like there's definitely power in the last name, but people have to stop the selfishness of making it about the first name. It's not just about you. It's about your family 3 generations from now. It's the reason why the Morgans and the Carnegies and the Rockefellers are still wealthy generations after JP and Andrew have long since passed, because they built the last name to outlast them. And you always say this, talking about, you're working to build something that far outlasts you. And that's where it is. Most people, they're living for the here and now. They want riches instead of wealth. Riches is something that'll dissipate in a lifetime. Wealth will outlast you a long time.
Right. What's interesting about the idea of riches and wealth is just because you do something for free under a brand doesn't mean you're not building equity. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't understand that wealth is equity. Wealth is what you own. If you have a stake in this company that has impacted so many lives, that's wealth. And you get there by just taking action and building the brand and building the company. And so now you have this nationwide footprint that you would have never gotten if you were just trying to nickel and dime everybody that you came in contact with. And so, it looks like you're working for free, but you're really working for legacy. You're really working for your kids' that are going to come in and say, oh, Todd Capital is me. We are Todd Capital. But I think that one of the things that you said something on the lines of the last name. And I have this struggle because I think that we have a community that has 80 to 90% of single parent homes. And it's very difficult to carry on the last name if you have no father present. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is, and what's really unfortunate, is you have these kids who will have a different last name than their mother. And I think that's so weird. And it kind of it's not good for the legacy, because if you have the kids who have the father's last name, but you have the mother who has her last name and then she remarries and has a different last name, it hurts the family dynamic psychologically. If you have a bunch of people they become more individualistic at that point. Whereas on my dad's side of the family, it's so cool knowing that my cousins and my aunts and uncles on that side of the family all have the same last name as me. There's strength in there. When I was growing up, my grandfather was the Hicks. It was the Hicks family. And there was strength in that Hicks name. Everybody knew it. We are the Hicks family. We hold ourselves to a different standard. And it was all last name based. But then you have people, because they had daughters, and so daughters get remarried, so that's different. And so we always kind of felt disconnected because we didn't have the same last name as them. But I think that it kind of creates that unity. It creates that oneness where when somebody wins, it's a win for you. When you are disconnected, when somebody wins, it seems like you're losing. Kind of like if you see somebody who's Black and they do well, you take ownership in that. You're we did well. If you have the same last name and somebody who looks like you was doing that, it's we did that. We have a stake in that. We made that happen. So I think it's
funny you say that because I have a daughter and me and her mother aren't married. But eventually, if I have more kids and I have a wife, It's essential to me, and I fought so hard to make sure that my daughter had my last name because I know where I'm going. I know what I'm building. I know the legacy I'm going to have, and I want her to feel attached to that. Even though the family might be in this way blended, I want her to feel connected to if I have another, if I have a son or a daughter that she knows that's her sibling, that the legacy that I achieve, she has just as much equal right to it as her other sibling. There is no disconnect just because I might be married to your sibling's mother and not yours doesn't mean you're any less enthralled in this family, any less entitled. And that comes to the dynamic of I'm going to put the onus on the Black man. You have to take control of your family.
Yeah.
If you got into a position where you have kids over here and kids over there, okay, it's not ideal, but it is your responsibility as the nucleus, as the core, as the head, to make this family one, to make the win one, to make it entirely encompassing of the entire family and make no one feel excluded because they have a different mother or they don't live with you full time or anything like that. So it's very easy for it to disintegrate because the men are taking the rightful place to take control of their legacies.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. I 100% agree with that. It falls on the man. It falls on the man to become a bigger person than just himself. A lot of times what you see is men do enough just to take care of themselves, and they aren't willing to do things that are going to allow them to take care of others. And that impacts everything. It impacts what you achieve in life. It impacts what you can build in life. I mentioned this in the last show, how like Mormon men do so well financially because they're taking care of everybody. The whole family is on their back. When the whole family is on your back, you're working Saturdays, you're working Sundays, you're working late. But when you work that much, you grow. When you work that much, you improve. When you work that much, your income increases. When your income increases, then you look like a legend. But if you're over here and you're only taking care of yourself, you're not going to grow. You're not going to work. You're going to slack off. You're going to chill. And what you're going to realize is you're impacting your legacy. You're impacting what you're going to get. A big part of the reason why Todd Capital exists is to retire my wife, to create something that's going to allow her to not have to work. And what's really interesting, and I really feel like I realized what I was going to say, is you're talking about businesses that might not get you massively wealthy, but they might do well. I'm even of the stance that if you create a business that only generates $20,000 a year, but you can still do it on the side, that's $20,000 a year that you didn't have. So like, it doesn't have to be Zuckerberg levels. It can be just a stream of income that's going to kick you an extra $2,000 a month. That's good bread. A lot of people that $2,000 a month will change somebody's life. So I think that the true key is getting out there and serving people. To kind of go back to the other topic, but back onto the last name topic, I bring it up because it's similar to the partnership aspect that I preach all the time. Maybe the reason why you aren't successful is because you aren't including your family. Maybe the reason why you're not successful is because you're building a company to stunt on people as to put on people. We need to focus on putting on people. I always tell people like Google, the CEO is not the only rich person. Everybody in Google's rich. On down to the staff. They're all eating. And we need to create organizations where everybody eats, not just the one person at the top, even if somebody makes more than the owner. I was in class and we were talking about that, how not necessarily the owner, but like LeBron James makes substantially more than the coach. But we have this top-down thinking where we think that the guy at the top has to make the most money. Sometimes if you want an organization that thrives, you might have to pay somebody who's more talented than you more money than you're making to come to your business and help you make more money. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you got to recruit star talent, then recruit star talent. You don't have to be the most heavily paid person in your organization. You just got to own the organization.
And when it comes to the last name, I want to make this a point because some people forget this. Procter & Gamble is one of my favorite all-time consumer brands. When we're talking about building the last name, it doesn't have to just be you. I'm real big on Black collaboration because I've seen it so big in white America where Procter & Gamble were two different men who happened to marry two sisters. But they joined together to build a company that now benefits two separate family last names, Procter and Gamble. So in the Black community, I always say this. I was like, Black people are the only people who would rather have 100% of a $20,000 business than 20% of a $100,000 business. Because if you have, think about this, if you have 20% of a $100,000 business, that means you can put 20% somewhere else that could be a $150,000 business. 15% where somewhere else can be a $300,000 business. You don't always have to be the head honcho. There's a beautiful book that I read. I think I recommended to Charles. Was called The 10% Entrepreneur. And it was a great concept. We was talking about a guy who has spent his entire career after he got out of corporate America putting 10% in several different businesses, whether he was on the board, whether he put in 10% of capital, whether he put 10% of skill a month. He diversified his income when he had dozens of different streams coming into his life because he didn't feel the need to be the one making the overall decision. He added the talent or skill or the financial backing that he needed or what was required for him or he felt he could give in a capacity, and then he moved on. And I feel like we need to capitalize on that effect where we have to get away from this whole, we need to be in control, we need to be in control, we need to be in control. Sometimes the team aspect is the most vital aspect of everything.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. That was a very, very valuable little bit right there, man. I like it. I kind of just want to have this conversation about this on the podcast. We could talk about the stock market and the investment club, but I feel like we're really pulling some nuggets out.
No, it's really good. That's why I didn't know where the conversation would go, but I knew we would just flow into the topics that we, that wherever the conversation flowed us.
Right. One thing I try to do is I always try to analyze the current status of the community and say, hey, this is what we could be doing better. Like, yeah, these are cool, but I see this and it needs to change. And for me, the reason why when Dame kind of brought that whole last name thing up, and I knew it was a bar when I heard it, I knew that Dame Dash interview resonated with me when I heard it. I think there's just people that just think differently. And it's not that either is right or wrong. It's just there are certain people that think differently. My goal is just to bring more people over from that side onto this side and let people know, like, it's a lot of value being on this side where we're thinking ownership, or we're thinking longevity, or we're thinking the last name oriented, but it works. And the reason why it resonated with me is because I'd seen it my entire life. Once I got out of college, if you look at my resume, I go from college, working just little basic jobs, to firm. So like Edward Jones, somebody's last name. Chase, aka JP Morgan, somebody's last name. And I started working for like law firms or other investment firms. It's always been a last name. And so I was like, dang, it's some power to this stuff. Like, I need to make my last name great. Like, there is value in a last name. And then when I got married and like she changes her name and all that stuff, like, there's power in the last name. There's power in unity. There's power in having somebody that shares your last name. I feel like at some point you got to stop living for the family that you were born into, and you got to start living for the family that you're creating. And so for me, that's wife, kids who eventually share the same last name. And of course, what I'm learning also is by bringing my mom into my business, that's helping. By bringing my sister into my business, that's helping. And ideally, my dad and everybody would get on board. But the inception of Todd Capital really was a family. Like, in the beginning, it was my aunts, my uncles, and me just coming together, and they wanted to support it. And I think that's really what helped kick it off.
It's an interesting concept because you always tweet about that, and I always admire it because I'm not married, and I strive to have a wife that I can build with. But the way you speak about your wife, whereas I think men of our generation, sometimes undervalue the value of a wife. How women take on your last name as if they have never had a last name before. They work for it and support you in a way, whereas they feel as though like they take ownership of it. They want it to prosper because they know that if your name prospers, their name prospers. They say that's why so proudly they so proudly often say, they like to be introduced as, Dr. and Mrs. So-and-so, or they like to elevate their husband in a way that your girlfriend can't, your baby mother can't, because they're not tied to that legacy. Though you share a child, a life essence together, there's nothing like a wife that will push your name and push your business and push your ideas, and that will make you work harder than you've ever had in life. Because if you have a wife that's supporting you like that, I imagine that it makes you never want to let her down. It makes you never
Right.
want her to be, to be without, or to be begging, or to be, in need. You want to provide for her every aspect of happiness that is within reason. So we have to bring back the concept of the black family and the black marriage being a thing of power, being a thing of legacy, being a thing of unity.
Right. Right. I put out a post. I said, marriage is power. And I always tell, I think I might have told her this. I was like, I'm me. Like, if I'm married, if I'm not married, I'm still me. But being married adds another element to me. And it's kind of like that quote or that Bible scripture where it says, like, where two or more join, there's favor in that. And there really is. And I don't know why it exists. I just know that it does. And I think that there is power in the connection. There's power in the partnership of marriage. And I always tell people, like, we've seen it. It's not even just like a theory. It's like we've literally seen it. Everybody who comes in this show that's been married has been successful. And it's not easy. It's very difficult because everything that you think that you are, as right as you think you are, you're going to come into somebody who's going to tell you that you're wrong and that their way is better. But interestingly enough, as you yield to that, you still have your power behind that decision. So it's like, say, for example, you want to go this way and she wants to go that way. Even if you go that way, you're bringing your power along to make sure that way wins. And it's just very interesting how that works, because if you think this is the way that only can work, that's not necessarily true, because the reason why this works is because you're there. So if you come over here, this is going to work because you're there. So I feel like doing it the right way is great. The glamorous way that happens on Instagram, I'm not sure if that's the real marriage. I think sometimes we showcase the glamour parts of marriage and not the grime parts of marriage. So you see the honeymoons, you see the big rings, you see the cool pictures. And I don't think that that's where the value in marriage is. I don't think that the value in marriage is showing off on the gram. I think the value in marriage is the connection. I think the value in marriage is the growth. I think the value in marriage is all the things that people are going to experience once they start hitting some rough patches that don't look like Instagram. That's when marriage really wins. Just like life. Like, life is really the struggles, not the fancy stuff we show on Instagram. Like, you grow through your struggles. You grow through those losses. You don't grow through the 40%. You grow through the losing 50%. And you're like, oh, I need to figure out how to really get this together. So
Yeah,
it's interesting
it's
stuff.
the trial and error. And you say that out. The last point I want to say this, like, social media has glamorized the singleness. Even as great as I am alone, the achievements that I've had so far, whether professionally, investing and all that, and even my intellect, as great as I am as an individual, I know until I meet my spouse, there's a level I'm not hitting. There's an
Right.
achievement level that only she can push me with, because women have a finesse and a touch, and they see you in ways that we as men can't see ourselves, because
Right.
they see us in ways that God instinctively designed them to push and nudge and mold and everything like that. So as I'm achieving and striving in my singleness, I'm excited and anticipating when I do meet that person, the level she'll push me to, the things I can achieve, the way she will, change my way of thinking, or just add to it to make me do things that I may have not even thought of.
Right. 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 I never thought about retiring somebody until I got married. And I was like, oh, I could do this. But what's interesting is that I always tell people, like, a business is really just another person. So, like, the business just replaces her income. The business replaces the revenue that she's bringing into the household. Like, you can get an asset to replace that. You can get a home to replace that. You can get whatever, a truck to replace that. And then she's not working, but you use your mind to create income for the family. But with that, I want to talk about the investment club. We're going to fly through this stuff because we've been on for a while talking about needs-based businesses and hustle for your last name. But,
Okay.
I mean, can you brief us on where the investment club sits as we talk right now?
The investment club, I spent the better part of the first quarter getting our working capital back into the market. I use a strategy I like to that's known as dollar-based averaging, where is you buy a portion or buy a set of number and set. So it took me about 4 weeks to put the 50,000 back into the market, based on the securities that the club voted on to buy. We did pretty good. And towards the end of 2018, Charles will tell you, like, I don't know if it was luck or maybe we just decided after 2 years it was time to give some profits to some of the members, but we got out in September of 2018 with a 41% profit. Am I right, Charles? 41% profit? No.
47.
47%.
47.
Okay, 47% profit. And the market basically cratered the last quarter of 2018.
Right.
It just, the volatility was ridiculous. And it kind of made me and Charles look like, unicorns, like we just knew it. And everything like that. And because of the volatility, I really didn't want to put the money back in because the volatility was just so high. So I waited to the first quarter, actually late February, early March to put the money back in there. The biggest holdings that we have are some tech stocks. I'm not going to give away the trade secrets. You got to get into the club to know what we're buying and everything like that. But we have some consumer brands, a defensive stock, which I like to say is what we use when the market's going up and down. And we have some speculative investments as well. The club is doing, we're about even right now. It's not a loss, it's not a gain because we haven't been in that long. But the goal for us is, because we did so well the first time, I set an ambitious goal for us to hit 60% ROI. That kind of has me on, not pins and needles, but that has me doing extra hard work for the 300 plus members to make sure that we hit, a substantial return on their profits.
Hold on. I want to say something really quick. The first thing is, I'm going to touch on what you just said right there. And that's the value of the investment club. The value of the investment club is the work, because Jamaal is going to become a better investor by having to perform for 300 people. And so that's going to have him doing deeper analysis. That's going to have him reading things he wouldn't normally read. That's going to have him talking to people he wouldn't normally be talking to. And so that's the value, is the investor that you become by taking on responsibility. I always say that opportunity looks like responsibility. And so as we've grown this club, I've given Jamaal more and more responsibility. As he's gotten more responsibility and risen to the occasion, his skill sets have improved. And so a lot of people, they're like, how can I get involved in the investment club? Like, just do stuff, and don't do stuff with the expectation of getting paid, because you're going to get paid in some form. If you only get money from an opportunity, you fell short. If you only get money from your job, you fell short. There's so much more to get out of a job and opportunity than money. Like we said, it's the knowledge that's going to make you wealthy, not the few bucks you get for your hourly wage. Like, oh, you got $20. $20 is not going to change your life. The knowledge that you gain by working with somebody is going to change your life. The other thing that you said that I like, I don't know if I liked it, but another thing you said that I want to comment on was about the luck. I don't think that was luck. I think that was planned, because around that time, I knew the stock market was overvalued. And I was looking at a lot of our holdings. We had companies that were up over 100%. We had companies that were up 50, 60, 70%. At that point, you got to take profits. You don't take a loss taking a profit. So whether we get 47% or we get 52%, my goal was to make sure we got a substantial return, and a 47% return on investment is good. Sometimes you have to take profits, comfortable profits, because you don't want to stick around too long and lose. And that came from experience. I learned that by investing and losing. I learned that by investing and selling too late, where you're like, oh man, this is doing so well, it has to go up. At that point, I was like, you know what, 47 is good. Let's cash this out and return our money to our partners. And like you said, a lot of companies did fall. Some are still where they are, where they need to be. Like Visa is such a great company. But yeah, a lot of companies like Netflix and all that stuff, they did kind of crater.
Yeah. The one thing I want to say about for anyone who might get in or who might be running their own investment club based off the things they've seen you do, because your followers have been booming since like you've been doing this. I've seen you go from 1,200 followers on Twitter. I think you're up to like what, 8,000 or 9,000 now. I
have 9,000, but what's really been booming is the Instagram, the Tide Investments Instagram.
Oh yes, I checked
it's
that
really
out.
Doing well. I don't know why it's doing so well, but I'm happy it is.
But the concept I always say is like, sometimes you have to, even when you have to know how to drown out the various pulls in the group sometimes, because all the members some members want to invest here, some members want to invest here, and some members want to invest there. And it's your job as the chief investor, or my job as the chief investor, to sometimes, okay, you want to bring them to a center where everyone is not even necessarily happy, but it meets the investment goal they were trying to seek. It meets the requirement that they all were trying to say they want to get into cannabis and tech, and they're trying to get some of that, risk reward. They want high risk, high reward thing. It's your job to bring them to the center, to give them, okay, this is a speculative thing. I feel like the risk is manageable as well as the return on investment is manageable. Let's do here, because the club, as Charles will know, the club will drag you into 100 different investment strategies if you allow them. They'll be everywhere. Not necessarily saying their intentions are to have bad ideas, but when you have a club the size of ours, it's hard to sometimes find a consensus as a group. So it's your job, and my job is, Charles and I together, to be kind of the hard hammer, to be like, okay, this is what we're doing. I see what you guys are saying, but this is what I feel like meets the requirements of what we're all doing, and this is what I feel like will be the best bang for all our money. Because the chief goal is to lose no one's money and to make everyone, profits. So you never want to let the crowd noise to drag you to a position that's just untenable. But the club as a whole, as Charles said earlier in the show, we're putting some structures in place. We're, getting new members on to handle membership, to handle different platforms that we're using. And I will say that the experience has been honestly phenomenal. It is better than any MBA course I could have ever taken because it's live work. Instead of doing a case study, the club is the case study. It is a daily case study of how to manage people's money, how to manage people's investment strategies, how to manage people's inquiries, whether it's Charles on the real estate side, where even though I'm not as hands-on with that portion, I'm reading the conversations. I know what's going on. I know, the progress. So managing people like this, it's kind of like the best professional hands-on experience that an MBA probably couldn't have given me in coursework.
Right. Not only that, it's also going to give you better experience than you're likely going to get on your job. And I say that because in a lot of instances, when you work a job, they hold you down. They knit you into a little department and they tell you are only allowed and or quote capable of doing this. And so you have a lot of people who think they can't do something because somebody said they couldn't do it yet, or somebody said they're not 50 years old, so they can't take on management responsibilities. And when you start your own business, it exposes you to everything. You have to do the taxes. You have to do the legal requirements. You have to do the bookkeeping. All that stuff gets on your plate. But responsibility is opportunity. And so all you're going to do is grow and be better. Last year, I made a ton of money. And my biggest issue was taxes. This year, I'm ahead of my taxes. I know what I need to do. I'm thinking taxes now. And so like last year kind of got away from me. I wasn't expecting all that stuff to happen. And so like I was behind the 8 ball a little bit, but now I'm going to be in front of the 8 ball. And then going forward, I'm not even going to be even considering the 8 ball because I've already had this strategy in place. And so I used to work a job where I was working for this family office and they would always kind of niche me into just doing one or two things. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I run a business and I do all this stuff. Like I'm a boss. And so I realized like, even at the job I'm at now, I was like, I'm a boss. Like, of course I'm going to find a way to get this done. Like I'm not an employee. I'm not some lame. I get this done on my own. Like I am powerful. I have the ability to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not what you say I can't do. I'm not what you say I can't do. I can do every single thing that I say I can do because I'm already out there doing it. And so like, the things you're going to get exposed to in this organization are going to far surpass what you're doing in your job. You're controlling massive amount of people's money. You're making investment strategy decisions where like on the job, they're going to say, oh, well, I don't think you should buy that property. I don't think you should buy that stock. Well, it's like, F you. We'll see how it goes. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, that's experience.
Yeah,
Shoot yourself.
That's very true. And I think the experience with the club, it pushed me to starting this consulting firm that I started because throughout college, I was always giving friends who would ask me, little tidbit advice. How can I protect my company? I would tell them, you start an LLC here, or you financially infuse here. I would overlook, some of their incomes and everything like that. And like you said, the value that built into that was all for free. Even when people would offer me, I'll pay you $50 just to kind of walk me through it. I'm like, because my thing was, I wasn't certified, and two, I'm always for giving Black people free advice. In my early days, I was always about giving them free advice because I always wanted them to succeed. I don't want just me and my family to eat. I want us all to get to prosperity. I believe that this $1.2 trillion spending power in the Black community. I feel like all of us could get a piece of that. Like there's no small enough piece where I feel like I have to hoard all my information. But friends kept telling me that I should, start a firm. And I started thinking that I've been giving away free advice for years. Like, let me start, charging a reasonable, not an exorbitant amount but let me start building small Black businesses in a more structured, professional way where it's like, okay, this is longevity. I feel like, I'm building you in a better position, not just giving you one-off little bits of advice. Let me come in and analyze your financial statements. Let's help with your marketing. Let's do your branding and put you in a position where your sales increase 20%. So, and that came from the stuff you made me do in the club, because I had to research more. I had to, talk to more people. I had to put myself in a better position, that my skills sharpened, that it even boosted confidence and knowledge further than I already had.
Right. The interesting thing, and I wrote a blog about this, is working for free is kind of like an internship. And a lot of people want to start a business and they have this idea, but they might not be that skilled at what they're trying to do. And you get that skill by doing. And so an example is, for me, like when I started filing LLCs, I did a whole bunch for free, but that gave me the experience to know, okay, this is what they expect in California. This is what they expect in Nevada. This is what they expect in Florida. I've literally done an LLC for every state. So now if I talk to a client, it's a business transaction. It's not I think I know. And I think that that's really important, because you sharpened your skills outside of launching your business. Even if it was working for free, even if people are going to tell you not to do that, you sharpen your skills. So now when you are talking to people, it's, you need to do boom, 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 boom. I can help you do boom, 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 boom. It's a lot different than being sloppy, being unpolished. You get that polish by just doing work. Work is the solution. Work is the best mentor. Like, I remember I read that book, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, and they really drew it in on that. Like, work is the savior. Work is going to get you where you need to go. If you are having a problem with your finances, go to work. And then after you go to work, then you can use that money to liberate yourself, whether it be to fund your investments, or whether it be to buy a property, whether it be to just feed yourself. But the solution is the work. And then after that, then you can start to scale and do some other things. Man. So let's talk quickly about the IPOs and other opportunities in the market. What's your thoughts on Lyft?
I think, and people think I'm crazy, I think Lyft will be the superstar out of the ride-sharing IPOs. I think that the issues that Uber had structurally, with their sexual harassment lawsuits and the founder leaving, how I feel about founders leaving. I feel like that's always a blow to the company. I feel like that Uber's well overvalued at $120 billion, even though it's a larger scale. I feel like Lyft has more room to grow, and that will be the better play long term. Even though Uber might skyrocket first, Lyft is probably the better long term play. And here's an interesting thing about this, because there are all these tech IPO. Lyft happens to be the one that went first. But there's Pinterest and there's Uber and there's some other ones that are coming out in the coming quarters. I think majority of them are in the second quarter. When Uber finally launches, the money will dry up for the rest of the IPOs, because most people don't realize is that what drives a lot of these IPOs is institutional investors. So those are your pension funds, your fund of funds, they're the ones, or even investment banks, those are the ones who will get into the investments early on to kind of prop the stock price up. And I wrote a blog about this. I think was it this week or maybe last week, about the effect of the IPOs, the unicorns. And what will happen is that some of these institutional investors only have so much money to invest, and that money is always tied up in something. So if one of two things are going to happen: either they're going to sell their current holdings in things like Apple or Google or those big names to get in on the Uber IPO, or they might not want to risk a stable track record blue chip stock, and Uber's IPO won't do as well as they pricing it out to do. And that creates a buying opportunity, I feel like, small scale investors for us, because you'll either be able to get those long-term good blue chip stocks like an Apple, like a Google, like a Netflix at a discount because someone had to sell their stake to raise money, or you'll be able to get in on Uber at a cheaper price because someone didn't sell those stakes to get it. I just think the IPO, this is the most IPOs I've seen since maybe the Great Recession. I haven't seen this many tech IPOs in some years, unless, I think it's supposed to be 19. I haven't seen that many in a long
time. The interesting thing about IPOs is like you don't really know. It's a valuation, and the valuation is based on like forward projected earnings. And they're saying like a lot of these companies don't even really make a profit, and it's scary. And so for me, in a lot of ways, an IPO is like the ultimate gamble because there's no track record there. You don't really know. Because, I mean, before you go public, you don't have to, like, publish your earnings. So you don't have to report earnings. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You don't have to constantly update people with your brand. And so it's easy to hide things. I just feel like, it's a gamble, but it's also an opportunity in that gamble. And so it's not something that you want to invest and bet the farm on, but it might be something you want to touch. It might be something that you want to have a little bit of exposure into because you never know. You never know what that company is going to turn into. But one of the downsides is a lot of us want that company to flourish in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, or even so far as like looking at it on a quarterly basis. And a lot of times what the IPO can do for a company, if it's done properly, is it can give them the capital to continue to grow their company, to improve their company. And so the IPO can actually improve what's there and give them, especially when you have companies that have grown so large privately, like Uber is a huge company. I'm not sure how big Lyft is, but I was just listening to like the Motley Fool thing, and they were talking about how their infrastructure allows them to do so much, where they can create a delivery company, or they can create a freight company, or they can create a taxi company, or they can create whatever the heck they want to create, just because they already have the apps built out. They already have a network of drivers. They already have their maps built out. They already have their payment systems implemented. And so it opens up the doors to do so much. But then again, it's still a gamble. It's not so much a gamble as like Snapchat, but that's why Instagram was able to compete with Snapchat, because they already had the infrastructure. They already had all these people with this app on their phone. They were using the app every day. All they literally had to do was give you an update, and now they're literally competing with everybody. And so that's what makes Uber dangerous. That actually is what makes Uber kind of more dangerous than Lyft. Lyft doesn't have a food delivery app, but they can get one, and that's going to help them. And it's not that difficult. You have a network of drivers already. You could just say, now we do Lyft Eats. Now we're selling food. Now we're picking up your groceries. So it's a huge opportunity for that whole market space. I don't think it's something we should reject because we don't really know. It took Amazon 20 years to become Amazon. So we don't really know. It's investing, it's guessing, we're speculating a lot, but to just kind of rule it out altogether, I'm not sure if that's something I would do.
No, I'm not. Definitely wouldn't rule out Uber. If that was the impression I was giving, let me tell your listeners, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in the long term, I feel like Lyft will be the better bet as far as the companies overall. Uber just has too many internal issues that give me worry. Like one thing I always analyze about a company is the executive structure. And we said this, I think me and Charles talked about this maybe on one of the calls a year or so back when I think the founder of Starbucks had came back after they had experienced some turmoil with the current CEO, and the company has recovered. The share price has recovered, and I'm always big on founders being the core structure of any innovative product, because there's weakness when they leave. There's strength in the executive team. A good example of what happens when a founder is shady. What was it? I think it was Thornos with the lady. What was her name? That medical device blood testing company. I know, but it went out of business because it turned out that she had some, she wasn't trustworthy. So all that $20 billion valuation evaporated. And I just feel like through their inception, Lyft has had the better, more stable, more above board executive team, as well as good, brand and goodwill financial structures that I trust them more. Uber can still soar. I'm not saying if anyone has any interest in investing in them. So far, I don't see anything wrong with their financial structure. It's just some of their internal problems kind of give me pause, whereas Lyft, I have more confidence in their abilities and their organization as a whole. But they're both dynamic companies, and I'm sure there's more than enough capacity in the market for them both to excel.
Right. Man, so it's actually been, we're talking for a while. What are some things you want to leave with the listeners?
What I want to leave is Warren Buffett has this 2 quotes that I always believe in. Number 1, don't lose the money. Number 2, don't forget rule number 1. But mostly I always tell people when investing, because they always ask me, how can I learn to invest? How can I learn to invest? You can't learn to invest over a weekend, over a conversation. It's not like that. Investing is a lifelong endeavor that continues to change and evolve and grow. So don't expect that you can learn it in a quick weekend of reading books. It's not a concept that you can just absorb intellectually. It's a avenue that you have to do practically. You have to open an online brokerage account and invest $500 here and $1,000 there. You have to be willing to take the loss, and you can't operate under the mantra of fear. You have to be willing to take the good with the bad, take the punches with the knockouts, like take the profits with the recessions. Like, be sure that you're in it for the long haul, and that overall wealth building is the goal and not instantaneous riches gain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like you have to dedicate yourself to the process of being an investor, not the event of the investment. And I think that that's one of the things that's really important. It's something I always tell people is like, it's not just the compound interest that matters as much as the compound principle as well. So it's like you have to continue to put more money into the market, continue to sacrifice, and instead of spending, save. And so you're growing your principal balance while you're growing the return on that principal balance. And that's where I saw the most opportunity last year. Last year, what I did a lot of was I made a lot of money in the business, and I threw all that money into the stock market. And so when you're investing thousands of dollars a month, you're going to do well because you can take more risk, because you can buy things that it might work out. And if it does, you're going to look like a genius, where I was buying like Ulta, and I was buying like all kind of crazy stuff. I made a lot of money in stocks that just like were great companies, but I would have normally just bought them for my long-term portfolio, but I would buy them for the strategy that I was implementing at that point in time with money that was effectively free money. Because when you're investing your business money, it's like free money. I didn't trade any time, anything for that. Really, I have a brand that generates revenue that then allows me to invest harder. So I want to write a blog on that. But I think we had a good conversation about last names, need-based businesses, the investment club success. It's so great to see all the people that are starting their own clubs. I encourage you to do it. There's so much power in your teamwork. Another thing that Jamaal said was just the idea of having that small stake in multiple businesses. And I think what's really interesting about that is it kind of speaks on what I talked about earlier, where if your company wins, I win. Like, that's how we have to start thinking. Like, a win for one is a win for all. And so we don't necessarily have to be the big boss, but we got to be able to participate in being the big boss and helping them build that organization. We don't need a bunch of unknown tech companies. We need some Amazons. We need some Googles. And that Google's going to literally liberate an entire community. But we can't do that if we aren't willing to help somebody else build something huge. And so I appreciate you helping me with Todd Capital. And people are going to be rewarded for that. People are going to definitely be owners of Todd Capital. It's not just a Charles thing. Like, eventually we're going to get to the point where this is a large, like, either S Corp or C Corp, where we have shares, and then Jamaal owns X amount of shares of Todd Capital, and Lance owns X amount of shares of Todd Capital. That's the big vision, because I don't just want people here.
That's a sermon right there.
Oh, so yeah, that's the long goal. And I mean, people who come in and ride with it, they all get rewarded. My thing is like, I always just try to, the best business is to do good for people. You can't last a long time if you're taking advantage of people, if you're undercutting people, if all these different things. And so that's been my strategy. To conclude, I just thank you all for listening to this show. You can find us at membership@capitaltodd.com or info@capitaltodd.com. One of the things we're looking to implement is, for every new member, we're going to convert to a subscription-based platform, meaning that it's not going to be free, but it's going to be valuable. And so our goal is to create value for people, where now we have more value in the group chats. Now we have more value on the conference calls. Now we have more value in the emails. Now we have more value on the website. And so we're going to convert to a subscription-based service, which allows us to really serve the people that we're working with, because we're running around with our head like chopped off, getting so many requests, so many people that are sending emails, so many people want this.
We make it look easy, but it is not easy at all.
Right. And it's like, time is money. And so if people have to take time to respond to yours, they should be compensated for that. And so it's going to be similar to like Netflix, where we're going to have like a $5 to $10 subscription each month, and it'll be paid each month, and that'll be on top of your actual investment. But the value is definitely going to be there. We're going to get you an ROI on your money, but we're also going to get you that ROI on your knowledge and your time. So we'll have more details on that going forward. If you want to support the show, please leave a like or subscribe, leave a review, help us spread the word. We're doing a great work and only going to continue to do greater works. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. You can check out Jamaal on Instagram. What's your handle, man?
My Instagram and Twitter handles are Jamaal W Vetose. So that's JAMAAL WVETOSE. You can follow me there. You can also subscribe to the monthly email, the weekly emails. Don't just listen to the podcast and read the blogs. We want active members, active participants, active community, involvement, whether it be on the real estate and investment side. As Charles says every week on all the shows with all his guests, that this is about building wealth community, crowd-based funding. We want as much of the Black money to stay in the Black communities and rebuild these hoods.
Rebuilding the hood, man. That's great. We need to really get on the good foot about building this hood and start getting this commercial property, putting some businesses in there, and just go crazy. I think we've been too conservative. We've just been dipping our toe in the water. We need to just go crazy. So the goal is to go crazy. Let's really
opportunity zones.
Yeah. And even if it's not an opportunity zone, it's just we are the opportunity. So, I mean, I'm never waiting for somebody to give me the green light. I'm never waiting for somebody to tell me that something is something we should be doing. We know we need to have a grocery store. We know we need a garden. We know we need all this stuff. So the things that we create make us legends. And so if we aren't willing to become the solution, we're not going to become legends. Thank you guys for tuning in. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Top Millionaire, signing off.